Now I can't show you a level 3 scent bust because it just doesn't happen to me, but I can show you a level 2 scent bust. And this is the same stand. It's a different date, it's December 13th. And this doe gets onto me as soon as she gets in my wind. She's about 12 yards away. Now I cut out a couple of minutes of this, and she's been on alert for a couple of minutes trying to figure out what's going on. So this is really a level 1.5 because a full level 2, she would have run just a few seconds after she became aware that something was wrong. But she hung around and she's sniffing the air for a while. She's looking over in my direction, but most of the time she's looking past where I'm at. Can see her little fawn on the left there. Now she's looking past my stand, wondering how far away this is, but finally decides she doesn't like it. And she bounds about 4 or 5 times and ends up stopping in the brush there. And she was there for a couple of minutes. You can see her head moving around. So really not freaked out. Didn't see her again. She slowly moved out of there. That's a level 2 scent bust. Now we're going to take a look at a level 0 trail bust where she becomes aware of my trail into my stand, but being level 0, she checks it out for a couple of minutes, but really doesn't change her plans, just moves into the food plot. Her 2 fawns passed across that a minute earlier. Now she gets there and she knows that there's something different about that ground, whether she smells the slightest odor of rubber boots or whether she's interested in that charcoal that's left behind when I walk or whatever it is. It could be the ground disturbance. We know that tracking dogs are able to follow ground disturbance. That is, even if a scent isn't left, they know that the ground has been disturbed and they will follow that track. And she's walking right along my track now, headed right for my stand. But in a minute, she'll decide it's not a big deal, and she's going to walk off into the food plot. And her fawns are over there feeding, completely unconcerned. And the best evidence that I have that this really didn't upset things in that area was we soon had a visit within 2 or 3 minutes from Mr. Three Legs, who came into the plot and fed there for quite a while. I also had visitors that came in from my right later in the evening. So that's a level 0 scent bust. It didn't affect my hunting at all. Now I'm going to show you my worst bust of the year. I'm set up in the same stand that we began this video with, except now the wind is blowing from the southwest into one of the little food plots. Here's a little closer view of that area. I'm perched in a tree right here. The wind is blowing in this direction, so I'm hoping it'll miss this food plot. But I'm really close, and I just have to depend on having super scent control. I've got a shooting lane right here so that I can see this food plot. It's about 60 yards away. And this drama starts off with 2 fawns coming in and feeding in each direction. And the 2 fawns were there for about 5 minutes when Mom starts to walk out. And right then, the doe fawn picks her head up and she smells something. Now I'm 60 yards away, folks. This is very unusual for me. I'll tell you one thing I did that day that I almost never do. I've only done it once before. I dragged a tarsal gland in with me from the buck I shot on the 29th. And I don't know if they were picking that up or if there's something wrong with my scent control. But I can tell you after the events of this night, I will go back the next day and go through every bit of my gear. Now there's quite a bit of time going on here, but this deer is pretty well on alert now and pacing around and coming over now and looking over towards my right. And I begin to think, well, maybe there's something going on over there as well. And I think maybe it's a buck just by the way this deer is behaving. And the other deer behind it is on alert somewhat too. This deer spends quite a bit of time just checking things out over in this direction. Now up to now, this is a level 0 scent bust really. They're smelling something, something's bothering them, but they're still using this food plot. And I end up having something like 8 deer out in here, I think 3 adults and 5 juveniles. And they feed for quite a while, probably a half an hour goes by. You can see them trickling out now. But at some point, some of the adults start to go on alert. They're casually feeding for quite a while, but they pick up something again. And after milling around and sniffing the air for about 5 minutes, the adults just feel like they're not comfortable anymore. And you can see this one turn, and she starts to make her way back towards the woods. Now there's a little strip of food back there, so they're going to go back there and feed for quite a while. And they leave the 3 fawns in the food plot there, and those fawns will be feeding for quite a while, but all of the adults go back into cover and hang out for a while. The fawns are going to be feeding here for another, I don't know, 5 minutes or so, maybe 10. But back in the background, in the cover, there's an adult. And watch what she does now. You can see her lifting her head up right there, and she's taking in deep drinks of air. Look at her lift her chin up. When they do that, they're sucking a lot more air than usual past their nose. If you've got anything that you're delivering to them, they may not have noticed it when they're just casually feeding, but when they take those deep drinks of air, they're liable to pick up scent that they wouldn't have picked up otherwise. So this is one of the reasons that we say we don't want anything to draw the deer's nose in our direction. We don't want to pee around the stand. We don't want to be eating food. We don't want to have any fake scents with us. We don't want anything to draw their nose in our direction, because once they take that fine-tuned nose and they point it in our direction, we can be in trouble. So being set silent is the best thing, and probably the biggest mistake I made tonight was bringing that tarsal gland from that buck back there with me, because it very well may have drawn their attention to me. Now, if you pay close attention right now, there's 2 things going on among these deer. The adults have trickled back out into the food plot. Some of them are looking over my way, but some of them are looking off to my right. There's something going on over there. They're worried about me, and they're worried about something else. And very shortly here, we find out what that something else is. You see a doe coming in from the right, and then behind her is a buck. And he's king of the world. He's got a harem here now, but he notices something. And it's something they've been noticing for quite a while. Look at his head go up. He's testing the air. It's something he doesn't like. See the doe's foot going up in the background? They're all on alert. And they're on pretty high alert. Now, these does don't like me, and they don't like this buck, and they want to get away from both of us. One thing they're not going to do is come in my direction. They want to escape him, so they're going to go away from me and into the woods, and they're carrying the buck away from me. If I had archery equipment in my hand and I wanted to kill this buck, it's all over with. I have no chance to kill him because they're not going to come near me. They've already sensed me there. They're not particularly afraid of me, but they're not going to move in my direction. I did see quite a bit of chasing going on back there, but that chasing is never going to come my way because I made a mistake this night and they picked up my scent. As you can see from the video, there's more than one buck back there too, so who knows what the possibilities were. There could have been a giant buck and none of them would have ever come in my direction.